Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into one of the most unexpected and significant developments inside Belarus, where signs of an internal power shift within the army appear to be emerging against President Alexander Lukashenko. This situation has raised questions about stability, loyalty, and the future of leadership in a country long ruled by a single strongman. The details are complex, but this video will break them down in simple and clear terms so that you can understand what is happening on the ground and why it matters regionally and globally. For decades, Lukashenko has maintained a firm grip on Belarus through a tightly controlled military, security forces, and state institutions. His rule has depended on loyalty from generals, commanders, and intelligence agencies, but recent events suggest that this solid structure may be showing cracks. Reports of disagreements within the army, unusual movements of key units, and silent tensions among senior officers have sparked speculation of a power shift. These developments are not openly declared, but they are quietly unfolding behind closed doors, and their impact could be significant. The military in Belarus has always been central to Lukashenko's authority. From suppressing protests to maintaining order, the armed forces have played a stabilizing role. But the political environment has shifted drastically in recent years, especially after the disputed 2020 election and the wave of mass protests that followed. Many officers were forced into difficult positions, torn between public sentiment and the expectations of the president. This created an emotional and moral divide that is still present today. Some officers remained loyal, while others began to question the direction of the country. Recently, the tension seems to have moved from silent doubt to quiet action. Sources close to the defense establishment have indicated that certain high-ranking officers are showing signs of dissatisfaction with Lukashenko's decisions, especially those related to Belarus's alignment with Russia. The war in Ukraine placed Belarus in a delicate position, and some commanders believe that the president's choices are putting the country at unnecessary risk. This has fueled disagreements behind the scenes, with some officers reportedly criticizing decisions they once supported. These internal disagreements do not necessarily mean an open rebellion is coming. What they indicate is a changing atmosphere within the armed forces. Small disagreements can evolve into bigger fractures, and in authoritarian systems, the army's stance is often the key factor in determining political outcomes. When the military begins questioning leadership, even privately, it signals a shift in power dynamics. Some officers may be pushing for neutrality, some for reform, and others simply for greater independence from political pressure. Another important element is the generational shift inside the military ranks. Younger officers who grew up in a more connected and globally aware environment have different views about governance, alliances, and national identity. They are less tied to Soviet-era thinking and more open to change. Older commanders may still support Lukashenko due to years of loyalty and shared political history. But the growing divide between old and new leadership styles has created a quiet struggle within the institution. Rumors about disagreements escalated when reports emerged of certain battalion commanders refusing to participate in specific operations viewed as politically motivated. These reports were not officially confirmed, but they were widely circulated by independent sources, adding more fuel to the speculation. When officers begin to decline participation in sensitive missions, it is often a sign of deeper ideological conflict. Lukashenko has responded by reshuffling certain positions, replacing some officers with those he considers more loyal. But such reshuffles can sometimes intensify the problem rather than solve it. The relationship between Lukashenko and Russia complicates the situation further. While some Belarusian military leaders support strong cooperation with Moscow, Others are concerned that Belarus is losing too much independence. The stationing of Russian forces, joint military exercises, and political pressure from the Kremlin create anxiety within parts of the Belarusian army. Officers who believe in national sovereignty see this alignment as a threat to Belarus's future. This has contributed to growing frustration among certain influential figures in the military structure. Another key factor is public sentiment. People in Belarus are tired of long-standing political repression, economic struggles, and limited freedoms. As the public becomes more restless, pressure on the military increases. Some officers quietly sympathize with the people, remembering that the army's purpose is to protect the nation, not oppress it. This emotional conflict affects morale, decision-making, and loyalty. When the public loses trust in leadership, the army eventually feels the impact as well. As tension builds, intelligence agencies have reportedly increased surveillance on military personnel to prevent potential internal rebellions or coordinated dissent. Such measures show that the government is aware of the shifting attitudes within the armed forces. However, excessive surveillance may backfire, causing resentment among officers who feel mistrusted. This creates additional pressure on the already strained relationship between military leaders and the president. International observers are paying close attention to these developments. A shift in Belarus's military loyalty would have major geopolitical consequences, especially given the country's strategic location between Russia and Europe. If parts of the army turn away from Lukashenko, it could weaken his bargaining power, reduce his ability to suppress opposition, and potentially threaten the survival of his regime. For neighboring countries, especially those in the European Union, such a shift could signal instability or opportunity, depending on how events unfold. Still, it is important to understand that a power shift within the army does not mean a coup is underway. What it means is that control is no longer absolute. Even quiet resistance, hesitation, or disagreement can change the balance of power significantly. Leaders in authoritarian systems rely heavily on perception. When the perception of absolute control begins to fade, confidence weakens, and alternative ideas begin to take root among influential people. If the tension continues to grow, Lukashenko may respond with stronger loyalty tests, forced retirements, increased Russian support, or reorganization of command structures. But each of these actions carries risks. Removing experienced officers might weaken the military's operational strength. Leaning too heavily on Russia could deepen internal resentment, and attempting to tighten control may only highlight the very insecurity the government is trying to hide. As officers continue to analyze the situation, many are looking for a direction that ensures stability for the country, not just survival for the leadership. Some believe reform is necessary, some believe neutrality is the safest path, others think Belarus must maintain strong ties with Russia to avoid external threats. These competing beliefs create a complex environment where a single decision could shift the balance dramatically. The future of Belarus depends heavily on what happens inside its military. If the army remains divided, the nation could enter a period of uncertainty or transformation. If the army unites under a new vision, the country's political path could change suddenly. And if Lukashenko manages to regain full control, the current system may continue, but with deeper internal scars than before. What makes this moment so important is that it reflects a broader struggle, not just within the army, but within Belarusian society. People are demanding change, officers are questioning loyalty, and leaders are struggling to maintain stability. These forces create a silent battlefield of ideas, fears, and ambitions. The outcome will shape the nation's future and possibly redefine its alliances and internal structure. As developments continue, one thing is clear: the old certainty surrounding Lukashenko's control over the army is no longer guaranteed. The power shift may still be quiet, but it is gaining momentum. The world is watching closely, analysts are assessing every signal, and the people of Belarus are hoping for a safer and more stable future. Whether this shift leads to reform, conflict, or a new chapter remains to be seen, but the journey has already begun.